Welcome to another episode of Living in Markham. I'm Ralph Ciencio. Today we are sitting with Evan Tudlong. We're going to be discussing sports, athletics, entrepreneurship, and an inspiration. You know, Evan's been a coach, soccer coach for my son, so that's a shameless plug, for a number of years, and he's helped develop him not only as a great athlete, but also as a great young adult. And that's something that really attracted me to the idea of having you on the show. I know you're an inspiring individual, young entrepreneur on a great, bright future ahead of you. And I wanted to bring you on the show and maybe tell your story. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. No, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Ralph.
So tell me a little bit about your backstory. So who is Evan? What does anyone out there need to know about this awesome guy?
So to give a brief background about my family history. So grew up, my dad was, he fought professionally in the Philippines. So he did Muay Thai. And so I kind of get that sports background from him. I grew up always playing sports. I played soccer, volleyball, basketball, all throughout elementary school. And so I was kind of, geared towards the path of athletics. I started playing soccer when I was at Markham at 10 years old. I played with the club for 7 years.
You started playing soccer at 10, or you started playing with Markham at 10?
Markham at 10. So I started when I was 5.
Okay. And where were you playing before?
I just played house league. I hated kind of the idea of like organized sports. I started training, doing fighting with my dad. I hated it. Just because, he was very hard on me. I did swimming. I hated swimming. I did soccer. I actually initially I just didn't like to be in an organized, place with people telling me what to do. And, my mom forced me to keep playing. And then, it actually started with, I don't know if you know Aldo, Coach Aldo.
I love Aldo Bavario. Yeah. So shout out to Aldo.
Shout out to Aldo. He was a great coach. He kind of, made me fall in love with the sport. He taught me how to shoot a ball properly, and that's just how it started. And that was at 8 years old. So I started getting into it more, playing more outside, and then that's when I kind of started with the Markham soccer team at 10. So that's my soccer career, and then.
What happened at 17? 17, you stopped with Markham. Where'd you go?
Yeah, so it's an interesting story. It's not necessarily just up. I kind of stopped playing after 17. It was at an interesting spot because I didn't have any D1 offers. I was never called for TFC. So at that point, I was.
Were you a good player though? Like, did you think you were an elite athlete?
So
what was your identity?
Yeah. So at the time, our team was ranked second in the country. And this was from U17. So
wow.
To bring it back, at 12 years old, we got a coach, Richard Alexander, and he was a former national team player. So he came in, when he came in, we just got incrementally better, or exponentially better, I would say. And then, kids from all over came, Vaughan, Moordale, Ajax, and we kind of built this team surrounded by his philosophy. And then, that's kind of why I stayed for Markham for so long. And we had a good team, but I was never that player, that star player who, would start the game, be that guy, that go-to, that coach would always call. I was on the bench for someone who was that player.
Wow.
So I was always kind of, I wouldn't say role player, but kind of behind the scenes. I always thought of myself as, okay, if I was in a different environment, I could be this. But I stuck with it. I was in that mindset of, can I try to prove my coach wrong? Keep training, it'll come. After that, club soccer, there's not really much after that. So I stopped for, I think, a year. I just played kind of with my university team, University of Toronto Scarborough. And
so you played on the varsity team at U of T?
So I went to UTSC, so the Scarborough campus. I played with that team for a bit.
Was that competitive? Like, in my mind, university ball sounds like pretty legit.
Yeah. I wouldn't compare because it was more extramural. It wasn't varsity.
Got it.
So by no means is it like not competitive at all. Still, you have good players, but it wasn't quite varsity.
Got it.
So I was content. I was happy playing just soccer,
Yeah.
just soccer at that point. And then I think 1 year, my friend Andrew, he shout out to Andrew. He runs his own business too, soccer kinesiology. And so he started training me, doing private training just for free. He just said, "Okay, I just want to train you, kind of, get the details of how I want to coach and whatnot, how I want to implement his knowledge from the kinesiology side." And I said, sure, sure, it's free training. And he kind of inspired me again to get that spark. Okay, let me try playing more competitive again. So I started training with Andrew, and then eventually making a League One team.
Amazing.
So just from not training whatsoever in the summer, I just trained on my own, and Andrew. And then, I saw Tim, one of the Markham coaches, and he said, "Hey, do you want to train with our League One reserve teams?" And I said, sure. And then I worked my way up to the first team. Then I made the University of Toronto, the varsity team. So
Wow.
it's a weird journey, but we got there in the end, and I'm happy for kind of everything that I went through. But
Yeah. I think it's interesting because there's so many lessons that somebody that's listening could extrapolate from your journey, because I think most people have this idea that success is linear, and most people think that it's just like, I'm going straight to the top, but it's honestly everything but linear. And it's what you need to learn at that time. So I think adversity, I think loss, I think things not going your way is some of the best lessons that could be in your backpack of life, because that will stay with you post athletics. Now you're applying some of those things in business. And whenever I talk to anyone about their story, whether it's success in business or success in a relationship or success in athletics, everyone thinks that it's just straight line up. But I'm like, no, what was your biggest challenge? And I can imagine at 17 years old saying, nah, I'm not going to play anymore. Okay, I'll play, just within the university Scarborough campus to reignite that. And the other lesson too is that sometimes when something is taken away from you is when you realize how much you want it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the thing. It's I started off with the question is, what was your identity? Were you an elite athlete? And my wife laughs at me because I'm going to be 44 this year, and deep down in this guy's head, out of shape, not top scorer, not in my head, I'm still an elite athlete. And I kind of impose that with my kids. I'm like, what's your identity? And this past ice storm, I slipped. I was wearing my son's Crocs. I went to the backyard to just grab something, and there was a sheet of ice, and I slipped, and I fell, and I came back inside. I was totally fine, no problem. And I had my head down, and my son's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I just slipped." I'm like, that was my second time in 10 years slipping on a piece of ice. And he's like, "Why do you care?" I'm like, because in my head, I'm an elite athlete, and elite athletes don't slip on a sheet of ice.
Yeah.
I go, I want to keep that identity because I think it's healthy for me to think of, an elite athlete doesn't eat potato chips. An elite athlete goes to bed on time. An elite, you know what I mean? So it's, and again, I'm just personifying that's one, dimension. But as soon as you identify with who you think you are, everything else falls into place.
Yeah, no,
you're tenacious, right?
Yeah,
that's part of your identity. A fighter, that's the Tudlong DNA is that you're a fighter. You're like, you know what? I'm gonna be on the role playing substitution for a player. I'm gonna stop, and you know what? I'm a fighter. I'm gonna come back and work my way up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big psychology guy, so I think at a young age, you're very influenced by your environment, and it's very hard to kind of get out of that as a young kid. And someone who is, maybe not that main guy, you're not getting the minutes you want. You're surrounded by all these elite players. Like we had players who went on trials for Bayern Munich. We had players in most of our team went to CPL or some sort of higher league. And, it's intimidating. And when you're not given that validation as a kid, you're like, okay, you could figure things out. You could say, okay, these are the guys who are going to get what what they want. I'm really here to, be a supporting role. But again, it's all the mindset. As a kid, it's hard to kind of get out of that. But that's why you need mentors. You need good coaches to kind of instill that in you. And that's kind of what helped me. 19, 20. I wish it was earlier.
Yeah.
But I'm glad for kind
Well,
of
you're
where
still
it took
young.
me.
I mean,
I'm
that's
still young. I'm not retired
you're
with injuries.
the oldest you've ever been, but believe me, the road in front of you is a lot longer. It's funny you mentioned that Aldo was an inspiring coach for you, and I'm sure you felt some pressure from him. He's always super supportive. He's not a intensity. Well, he's intense, but not an intimidating guy.
Yeah.
But my first role with Markham Soccer Club back, it must have been circa 2007. Lidio Esposito was a good friend of mine growing up. Him and I decided to do something with kids, something to give back. So we actually coached Aldo's son. I was a house league coach at U5, U6. Now I think about it, if you could have been, did you play with his son?
Adrian?
Yeah, Adrian.
I did. OSL.
OSL, okay. But you were not with Markham Soccer Club at that time?
There were some games at the youth where I got called up to play with their team.
Okay.
Because at the men's league team at the time when I was U17.
Yeah.
So I did get to play with them.
So
but not at
I
a
wouldn't
young
have
age.
coached you is what I'm saying. No.
Yeah, okay, yeah. No,
So,
you wouldn't have coached me.
that was my first coaching gig,
Yeah.
and I loved it. It was so fun, and it's so great because you see these kids growing up, and you see them mature as adults. But now I look back and I'm like, man, Aldo was such an amazing coach and inspiring guy. He's a teacher now. He's just about to retire. Was involved with the board, and I was like, what was he thinking about me coaching his son? Like, he must have thought I was horrible because I had no idea what I was doing. And it's cool to see that torch being passed, and whatever he's inspired you, now you are now passing that torch to the next generation.
Yeah.
I see it in some of the kids on our kids soccer team, kids within your business. So let's talk about that for a bit. So you went from university, you graduated, background in psychology. You were not sure where to apply your talents, and then what happened?
Yeah, so I was kind of in this state where, finish school, do I want to go back into the psychology realm? So I had some time off to think about what I want to do. And actually, it was kind of my family, my dad, my sister. They were at a point where my dad wanted to open his own kind of place to teach. My sister, she teaches yoga on the side, so she wanted to kind of go into her own thing for yoga. And we're all just like, as a joke, how awesome would it be if we just opened our own place?
Wow.
I taught soccer, she did yoga, and my dad did teaching. So who knows where that dream will take us. But I got interested in, starting my own business. That's a good place to start. And at that time, I was doing personal training for a few players, for little to no money at all. Yeah. But, I saw a future with that, and I said, okay. So I went to entrepreneurial business management at Humber. So that was just a 3-semester certification. But through that time, that's kind of where I learned the fundamentals of business. I had no knowledge whatsoever of business. I didn't know sales. I didn't know marketing. I didn't know operation management, like none of these things. So it was just good for me to kind of get that competence in business and be confident starting. I think that's the main thing, is just when you're starting any startup or entrepreneurial venture, you just don't know where to start. So that was kind of me building that confidence and, saying, okay, the knowledge I take from this, that'll help me at least start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
well, you get to apply what you've learned. And that's the cool thing, because the thing with knowledge, it means nothing. It's the execution where all the value is, right? And, I remember watching a report on BNN. They were talking about this young up-and-coming tech genius in the West Coast, in Palo Alto. And they were interviewing him, talking about the future of social media, future of technology, AI. And he said that every week they go for a coffee on a Friday at this little coffee shop in San Francisco, or near San Francisco, and they talk about their ideas. And the interviewer said, well, that's crazy. Why would you share all your ideas with like your tech competitors? And he said, there's no value in an idea. It's execution where all the money is. And so that's the thing that's interesting, is that we get curious about something. You go and you study it. you get these ideas. It also shapes your identity of who you think you are, because now you have this certification, you have this degree, you got this diploma, whatever it is that we have the accolades for. But then it's the application of it is where all the the results are.
Yeah.
That's where the fruits are. So you started from there, personal training, went out to start the foundation of this business.
Yeah. So, I mean, throughout Humber, I actually remember doing a project with three guys from Colombia who are now like very close friends of mine. We did a presentation on Football Factory. Like together, I kind of had the name, they made the logo, and we did this presentation.
Wow.
So, we went through all the stages: business model, canvas, everything that goes into the stages, fundraising, everything like that. And I mean, to this day, the logo is the logo that was created through that presentation.
I watched this movie once called Facebook, and similar beginning, and at the end it got very expensive.
So
it's
maybe we're the next Facebook. Who knows?
Hey, that's just make sure you get the NDA, whatever those things you have to sign to save yourself.
Yeah.
But that's really cool. So then from there you graduated, and you got Football Factory on its own ground, and you started this training now. So tell us about Football Factory.
Yeah, so Football Factory started as private training, giving players in the Markham area the opportunity to get extra touches, because it's not really a thing till, me and a few others kind of started our small businesses, because, this was a thing west, it was a thing in the east. We're like, why is there nothing here in Markham? Markham Stouffville area. So I thought this is a great place to start. Players need it. Like, it's getting increasingly more competitive in the landscape. Yeah. Players are training, crazy amount of hours, and it's like, you're competing against the crazy.
Yes.
And so
that's a great line.
Yeah.
You're competing against the crazy.
Mm-hmm. So, being that kind of platform where kids have access to get that extra training was the initial incentive. And then, to have a sustainable business, you want to think down the road 10 years from now, okay, what is our value proposition? What are we offering? It's not just training. Anyone can offer training. And so initially, kind of before I started, it was like, hey, maybe I can incorporate the psychology, kind of add that as some extra value to what we're offering for the training part. And then that's kind of when I met Anthony at the perfect time. And so his business, EFP, European Football Pathways, started the same way as myself, doing personal trainings. But they had the vision of sending players over to Europe. That's
for sure.
Given
European
the name.
Pathways, for sure.
Yeah.
Now Anthony's from Spain. Well, he's from here, but lived in Spain.
Yeah.
He played soccer in Spain as well.
Yeah. So I think it was at the age of 16. He was sent over to Spain. He trained with can't name the top of my head the clubs that he trained with, but
Valencia, I think, or one of them
might have been one of
or
them.
near there, near Valencia,
in Valencia area. And so he came back with the idea, okay, I was given the opportunity. He had an injury. Unfortunately, that was the end of his career, but he wanted to give that opportunity to players here. And that's kind of the best of both worlds, because, me on the training side, that was the product, that was a service. And then his side, it was offering those opportunities. So to be able to kind of combine the two is kind of the perfect mix. Sure. And
well, what I see that kind of in a sense, European Pathways, European Football Pathways. I want to make sure I get that right.
Yeah.
EFP, which created that vision. It's where would the player, the path, where are they going? Mm-hmm. And you're showing the tactics on how to get there. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like he's showing you a Mount Everest, and he's saying, we're going to Mount Everest. And you're like, I'm going to show you how to climb. I'm going to talk to you about, eating the right foods, about oxygen, about techniques. And that the two of them are what you need. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really, really important, because a lot of times, and when we see partnerships in business, I'm usually hypercritical about any business partnership. Mm-hmm. Because what happens is people generally find like finds like. So you get a salesman and you say, oh, I need a business partner. I get another salesman. I said, no, you don't need another salesman. You need an ops person. You need operations, or you need a finance person, or you need stability or HR or something else, right? An excellent book we've gone through many times, anything from Gino Wickman. So he wrote a book called Traction, and he talks about the idea of a visionary leader and an integrator leader. And the integrator leader is someone that can find like the day-to-day things that need to be done.
Mm-hmm.
The visionary is the one that says, okay, this is the overall picture of where we're heading.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in any partnership, you have to have a mix. You don't
Yep.
have to be one or the other, but someone has to be one all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So
you got together with Anthony, you developed Football Factory's partnership with EFP.
Yep.
And from there, you've started now doing one-on-one, small group,
Mm-hmm.
large group coaching.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we are now. The group training side is what we're offering, and
that's for boys and girls starting from what age?
yeah. So from age 6 to, really 20 plus.
Yeah, I was gonna say you have some big guys in there too.
Yeah, it's a big range, but our main focus is the grassroots, 8 to 12. So we offer two different sides of it. It's those who are getting into soccer, they're not quite in a competitive environment. Okay, we want to offer that training for them, and then it's the high performance side. So our competitive program, because that was another thing, is looking at the pain points of other businesses, and it was how do we create a training environment that's not within their clubs, where we can get all the best players to train without kind of just opening the doors to everyone. And that's kind of where we thought, okay, if we do high performance, we make it a little more exclusive. That way, if you're a good player in the area, you want to train with the best. Yes. And that's
the other crazies.
Exactly. Creating
like finds like. Yeah.
Exactly. So creating that environment for them while still being able to offer for those who are still working their way up to that point. So kind of a pathway within the big grand scheme of things. And just currently we're offering teams. So our players that we're selecting from our high performance and outside of that, because now the world of unsanctioned soccer, which for those who don't know is anything outside sanctioned soccer. So your normal clubs, Markham, Vaughan, Woodbridge. There's people who host unsanctioned tournaments for really anyone to join, and you can enter a team by just going on their website, and
it's kind of like the wild, wild west.
It really is
of soccer, and I know that the Twins have done a job of shining a spotlight on, for example, leagues like Game Awareness or Super League. Which again, if you're just watching this and you're tuning in, these words may not mean anything to you, but if you're in the know, it's kind of like if you know, you know. And I would say that in competitive sports, well, in sports in general, there's recreational. That's like the foundation of the pyramid of sports, and then from there there'll be some version of select, or like the best of the recreational. From there there'll be a competitive, which is rep soccer, and then depending on the club, you could have 3 different or 5 different levels of skill within a club. So you could have like a tier 5 and a tier 1. Generally, they put the best players or strongest players on tier 1, and so on. But there's a whole other world which has nothing to do with this, which is just like a guy or girl who says, I want to put together a team of amazing people, and they could be from any club affiliation, any organization, even no affiliation, which is a crazy thing I want to talk to you about, is this idea of people having no club, which is like a crazy fad. But then out there, it's just like street. I see it like street ball. Now, I grew up in Canada. I'm Canadian, but my family's from Argentina and bloodline from Italy. In Argentina, there's not structured leagues. It was street ball. It was, you grabbed the ball, you went, you knew where the people played, and the best guys got to play. That was it. And the ones that played, the best guys played, and the guys that played the most got better. So they got better, and then they went to another pitch. If you were the best on that pitch, you got to play a lot. If you got better, and that's all about touches, all about experience, and we call it time on the field. And again, we can relate this back to business and say it's, time with clients or time on the sales floor, or it's just finding environments where you can stay outside of the structure to get more opportunity. And that's what I love about, your idea of finding specific teams that can get out there for a mini tournament or a private league.
Exactly. So, I mean, those guys who are running these leagues, like they're doing a tremendous thing for Canada soccer, Ontario soccer, because again, it's the access to more games, more touches, more time, and just, posting a tournament. It's very accessible. You go, you make a team, and I mean, it just so happened that all the best players want to compete in these tournaments. There's many reasons for that. They're very well run.
Why do you think that let's talk about what would draw somebody to that type of tournament or that style? I've got a couple of ideas in my mind. What do you think is
Well, I think again, like the reason why they started was because they saw some pain points in what's going on in the leagues. And a few of those are, okay, the rules and regulations are changing. They don't want kids to have medals. They don't want to have tournaments.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah. So they're bringing that competitive environment back, which is what, parents, especially parents who grew up playing in competitive environments, want for their kids.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't exist.
Participation ribbon.
Yeah.
And I had a thought about that, about the idea of trophies. And, a lot of what we do when we're getting someone's house ready for sale, our designer will go through the home and make a list of all the things that we want out of the home to really showcase it in its best light online. From there, we'll give them packing boxes. The people will pack up the items they need to get rid of. And then my labor team will come with our moving van and literally pick up the stuff, bring it for donation, bring it to the garbage dump, or put it in storage. Do you know what the most common thing we pack up is?
Common thing you pack up?
Trophies.
Yeah, trophies.
Trophies. And I was like, why the hell am I packing up so many trophies? Do you know why? Because people keep them. Because there's a meaning, there's a memory, there's this meant some. I achieved this 4th place York Region slow pitch, whatever that thing is, or but people kept them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They throw away toys, they throw away shirts that don't fit, but the award they keep. And I think we're robbing our kids from a future of identity, of like, I earned this. I was the best one that day. I did it.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you didn't do it, and what I tell my kids when they lose, I go, today's a great day to learn. Like, today you weren't the best, and that's okay. Today's their turn. If you want to have what they have, you need to do what they do. And if you want to have more than they have, you have to do more than they do. And people don't do that. They just think, I'm at practice, I show up every day, I give it my all. I'm like, yeah, you're going to be like equal as everybody else that's doing the same thing. You want to be better than that, you got to do extra training. You want to be better than that, do extra training. You want to be better than that, do extra training and watch videos.
Yeah.
Obsess about the game. Surround yourself by people that are better than you. Right?
No, absolutely. I think it provides a stimulus for kids to achieve, and by taking that away, they need some sort of external motivation to build that internal motivation, I think. And I think, just watching our players when they go to tournaments in comparison to festivals, which are, the place where they just go to play 2 games and there's nothing that comes out of it. There's a huge difference in their just mindset, their hunger, their preparation. So it's about making kids love the sport of soccer.
Yeah.
And by taking those things away, I think it affects their internal motivation indirectly. So I just think by bringing these unsanctioned tournaments, again, going back to it, it's just another way for kids to just fall in love with the game, because it's not about winning all the time. Like that's not, the end goal of things, but they need that. They need that motivation. So
I think you're right. And I think that that's something to strive for. So, I'm really excited because, my older son who plays in the OPDL is just now this season, and he's played soccer for many years. They're just now going to keep score. Can you believe? He's at the highest level of soccer you can play in Canada, and they're just now at 14 years old gonna keep score. How can you expect people to improve if you don't keep score? You know, a great business leader said, anything that can be measured can be improved. And I think we should be measuring as much as we can, because that's a way for the winners, the champions, the fighters, the competitors to improve. You know, we see it within our own industry. You know, in sales, you know, they have awards now, and that it's funny because the pendulum swings, and that's all people focus on. And there's a negative to that as well. People that just collect trophies and not the lessons or not the, you know, longevity of it. But I think if you can measure something, and I've seen you do it, and that's one thing I love is even, you know, when Adam's been at training with you, you know, let's measure your 40-yard dash. Let's count the number of touches. One of the things that we've implemented recently, because I want, you know, my family or my kids to be competitive with themselves, because the most important competitor is you yesterday. So we've got this product. I mean, it's City Play or Player Maker, and you've seen them, where it's basically a little dongle. It's a little sensor that you attach to your shoes, and it keeps track of your touches, keeps track of your speed. And now every training session, Adam takes them off, syncs it to his phone. He's like, oh, I didn't use my left foot enough. Oh, look how slow I was. I did too much time standing still. So now when he's on the field, he's not thinking, do I need to wait for the right pass? He's thinking, oh, while I wait for the right pass, I need to be moving, because he knows that he's checking his own stats, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's his stimulus. That's what he refers to get that extra motivation, and that drives his internal motivation. So now he's relentless to just beat the stats, and what that's doing is it's getting him better without him, you know, just comparing stats. And now I've seen Adam. His mindset is just, he's just focused. He wants to do touches every time he can. And again, that's what me as a coach, I want for each and every player is, you know, can you get to that point where you're just obsessed and you love it, where you're just, whenever you get free time, that's what you're doing. And again, that's what it takes. And
for sure. But you've been an excellent role model in that regard. Like, I think, you know, part of why, you know, we brought Adam to training with you. I mean, you worked as his coach within the club soccer. You're a great role model. You're a great young man. My wife and I think you're you know, special and positive. And that was one thing that we said, okay, well, you can learn about soccer. I go, but really you're learning about life through soccer. Yeah. And I think that's the key thing. In the end, who's going to make it to the professionals? Nobody, right? Or, you know, very, very small. I don't want to say nobody to sound bleak, but the point is not to make it to the professionals. The point is to, what could you learn through sport? What could you do that keeps you off the streets, keeps you, you know, up and at 'em? You know, growing up, I played competitive soccer, and I wasn't out, you know, causing trouble because I had a game the next morning, or I had training, or I had, you know, work with my dad. Like, I just didn't have the ability to find trouble. I you know, maybe trouble would have found me if I was out there more, you know? And that's where I think that, you know, there is a benefit to, you know, the macro soccer, macro baseball, macro hockey. I think there's a niche for this private type training. I've seen it really explode in hockey, which I look at hockey, you know, compared to soccer, like the older brother that's been around longer is more developed, because in Canada, it's certainly more established than the hockey scene. But then when I look at athletics in general, I look at Canada as like the baby brother in a family of 7, and United States is the oldest sibling, you know? I'm like, we have so much more to go.
A lot.
From facilities, like we were at a tournament recently in the US, and I was like, wow, that's a beautiful university. Like, look at that stadium. And I looked on a Google map. It was a high school. And I said, this is better than like York or University of Toronto. And like phenomenal. And it was a high school. And I thought, wow, they have a prioritized sports system, which has its negatives in some lens. But, you know, it's a culture, and it's a culture of champions, culture of can you be better? And so, yeah, exciting.
Yeah, no, it is. And that's kind of the incentive to send players out to Europe. And we tell the parents, say, you know, your kid's not going to necessarily sign a contract, but they're there for more than that. It's to experience that culture And if they like you, they'll call you back. That's even better. And maybe they'll send you to a trial to another club that's more competitive. But again, it's seeing the fields, like you said, being able to experience that, seeing the environment of all the players. Like, they have their own nutrition plans so they're training like a professional at 10 years old, 10, 11 years old.
Yeah.
And just experiencing that, when you come back, it's like, okay, these are the standards. You kind of have a benchmark. So most kids, they'll probably compare themselves to their teammates. But, by kind of getting that exposure, you're now like, okay, there's a lot more that goes into this. So
well, you unleash a demon.
You do,
and it's a Pandora's box. And I remember my grandfather said, be weary when you travel, because if you find a place you like more than home, you'll never be happy again. And I think about that a lot. I think about that statement of, as soon as you see better, you become a little bit less happy or satisfied with what you've got. Now, my boys both had an opportunity to train in Spain this summer. They were there for over 2 weeks, and it was an amazing experience. One of the best things about it was they saw what could be. There's a negative of that, which is like they felt more frustrated. To be like fully transparent, they came back both very frustrated with their club. They're like, man, I made the pass and the guy wasn't, or man, I wasn't quick enough today, or man, it's just like the pressure was increased. And that was a negative that I didn't anticipate. But the idea that they could see another step ahead was really cool. One thing that I realized, and I know that a friend of mine who sells real estate here in Toronto, Tom Story, he says, visibility beats ability every single day. And I think one of the cool things about being, in a great club, or playing in unsanctioned tournaments where maybe you're getting a different lens, a different exposure, or having one-on-one private training with these micro groups, or having an opportunity, European football pathways, getting you some exposure. They can't call the kid they don't see. So it's about visibility, and that's where things like video recording and people having their own YouTube or social media channel. Like, I have this growing theme in my feed of, kids my kids' age that are playing at a really high level. Like, my son forwards me something, and I'm like, what's this kid up to? And I'm following these guys that are playing on TFC at 13 years old, and I'm like, I want to see what their lifestyle is like.
Absolutely.
So, there is that like future hack of like being out there, because you have to be visible.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say this to all parents is, think of creating, now this is, again, Pandora's box, because I feel like this for a lot of parents becomes an addiction, but post some videos of your kid, whether it be 8 years old, 9 years old. Start when you think they're ready, and just post some clips, and you can go back and you can see their progress. And eventually when it grows, they kind of have this mixtape or something that other coaches can see, and it can open up other opportunities for them when they're older. Maybe not necessarily when they're 8, 10 years old, but it'll help motivate them. They can see their progress. I'm sure parents show their kids all the time what's going on, and even just posting clips of them training on their own. Yeah. And, it gets them to, okay, can we do another video? And then they fall in love with training, and then they'll just do it all the time. And I've saw this with Nicholas, one of the players who made TFC. And like, I remember looking at his page, and I was like, this kid is doing like all the right things on his own. Bicycle kicks in the backyard. And it's like, it's this that is going to take the kid far, is just kind of, being passionate. And I think the social media part, again, it has its downfalls, but I think it's also something where they can see and like, okay, like, this is what I can do better, or this is something I can work on, and maybe I can show it and help motivate them as well.
But even to be aware of things, right? So, for example, Adam will follow specific players, and he'll see, oh, there's a tournament in Vaughan this weekend. Yeah. And you go back to when I was his age, I had no idea that, like, the world was a lot smaller. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that there's definitely a opportunity there. One thing that's worth sharing. So when I was talking to one of the coaches in Spain, now they came over and they did kind of like a camp and tryout, and when Adam and Julian were selected to go, so they got to physically see them here, which is unusual. And there was one kid that came from Australia, because there was kids from all over the world. There's one kid. I said, Miguel, did you go to Australia to get this guy? He goes, no, he had found us online and said, could I come? And I said, so you just let him come in? He goes, no, that would be bad because we need to keep the quality high. If we dilute it, the skill level, everybody loses. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting thing. You'd rather say no to keep the purity of the group. He said, we asked for copies of video of his son playing. I go, you asked for clips? He goes, no, I want the full game. He says, I asked for 3 games that their kid played. I want the whole game. So I think that people put together clips. Oh, look, this is me with a beautiful header. But did you stand around the middle of the field for the entire game? Were you a negative player? Were you supportive? Did you high five the guy when he missed a shot?
Yeah.
Or so there's all these intangibles that mixtape is great to get attention, but make sure there's some substance there.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one thing for parents, for players on social media. It's like, don't compare yourself to all these people posting their highlights because these are their best moments.
Yeah.
And it also becomes a competition. And again, as long as the player knows that and they can watch their own videos without trying to just take their best clips, but actually seeing, okay, and break it down in these moments. Where could I have been? Where could I have moved to? Should I have played this pass? Should I have just turned back? So I think, there's a lot of benefits, but again, just not focusing on those highlight clips again is the main thing.
Funny story. I was talking to a parent. So we have a VO camera, which is, has a technology to see the whole field. You set it up and you don't have to think about it. And I purchased that because I was standing on the sidelines a couple years ago, and there was like 10 parents like watching the game, myself included, through their phone as they were recording these clips. And I thought they're missing out on being present. And myself personally, and these other parents that I cared about. So I was like, if we just buy it, then everyone can just absorb the game, enjoy it, cheer everyone on. And, I was talking to a parent at one of our games a few weeks ago, and he was telling me how impressed he was with this technology. He goes back when his son, there was a grandfather I was talking to, says when my son was playing 20 years ago, I had those big camcorders and I had to record, this way. And I recorded a whole season, and we went for a soccer tournament, and they took a bus. The whole team went down to Buffalo, and the coach said, you know what, I know you record all the games. Maybe we could watch the tape on our way down. And he goes, I felt so embarrassed because I was only filming my son. He goes, I had a whole season of just my son playing. He goes, I can't put that on the bus. So it's, making sure you capture as wide of the field as you can.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm sure that's a very common issue with parents sending clips.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, we're only recording, this kid's highlights.
Awesome.
No, the VO is a great technology. And again, things like that is what's going to advance the game and help players with their development. So
what's next for you? So let's talk about you 10 years from now. Where do you see yourself? Where do you see Football Factory, European Football Pathways? What's next for you? You're a young guy. You got so much in front of you.
Yeah. So again, we are still in that stage where we're trying to find a repeatable, scalable process for ourselves, figuring out what we are exactly. Yes, we offer trainings, we do team stuff, tournaments, leagues, but what is our overall goal? What are we trying to do for the long term? Is this sustainable? So again, 10 years from now, we are hoping to eventually expand and venture outside of the Markham area. 5 years from now would probably that goal. 10 years would be try to expand elsewhere. So there's a location in Australia because Anthony, he had a friend, a teammate who he played with, and they sort of started European Football Pathways, and he stayed in Canada. His friend took it to Australia. So it's also a cool connection as well because they're also more on the agency side of signing players. So again, we all share the same sort of we have access to their connections. So that's kind of beneficial for us. So expanding elsewhere would be another step for us. But again, keeping that in mind, focusing on the next year, the next 2 years, next 3 years, those will be kind of the focus for us, and it would just be expanding our high performance programs. We offer certain ages for both boys and girls, but we'd love to have all ages for both boys and girls. Not necessarily as an academy, but an environment where kids can still have access to training while we're still playing with their club, but in a higher competitive environment with players from Vaughan, players from Woodbridge, players from Pickering, and kind of, come to a place where, they can get the best training, they can all come together, and I think that's just the main
vision.
That's the vision. So I mean,
a lot of learning along the way.
Absolutely.
And then, the cool thing is, 10 years from now, far in the future, you're still going to be super young. So like you're still going to have like a very viable 20 and 30 year plan ahead of you after that point. So hopefully, just as we said, there's life lessons through sport. Hopefully you're learning and developing your business acumen. I don't know what the word is.
I'm not sure.
Business ability.
Yeah.
Along the way, because I see you as a bright young man, bright future. As long as your values of contributing to others are there and you're putting your passion forward, I think everything else will fall into place. I will say that in the next 5 years, you have jet fuel in your back pocket, which I'm super excited about. We're less than 500 days away from the World Cup. Like within 500 days from now, we'll have a World Cup in Canada, which absolutely blows my mind. I never thought that we'd have a World Cup in Canada. I was lucky enough to attend the World Cup in 1994 in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that's the closest it's ever going to get. And here we are, BMO and Vancouver. We'll have 6 games. Really, really exciting. I think it's going to bring a ton of energy and focus on the sport of soccer in the next 2 years and beyond. I talk about the future of the sport, the future of the business of the sport. I remember it took 18 months to find a basketball net at Canadian Tire after the Toronto Raptors won the championship, right? It just basketball exploded.
Absolutely.
And now you see top player, Canadian guy, just scored 54 points. No, from basketball.
Gildress. Shea Gildress-Alexander, yeah.
54 points in a match. Unbelievable. Canadian boy. Unbelievable that. So you look at it and say, well, what was the impact of an NBA championship in Toronto area or in Canada? Who went to the court that saw, there is a path. And now we look at, Canadians like Jonathan David in the news, Tajon Buchanan. There's a lot of big Canadian signings, right? Davies. These are all big names that are putting Canada on the map. And there's a lot of scouts, clubs that are shining their flashlights saying, wait a minute, is this an untapped resource, right?
Absolutely. It'll be huge. And like you said, I think it's just, not only a short-term motivation, but it's also people saying, okay, like this could be me. Like, for example, the Women's World Cup, what it did for women's development, huge. And this also gets bigger organizations to look down and say, okay, we're going to put more money towards, these systems, the grassroots clubs, because again, it's constantly growing. Soccer is, I think it's currently bigger than hockey right now in terms of growing numbers for kids participating in. So I'm excited for the future.
It's exciting. And, women's soccer is exploding in Canada. The talent that we're putting out is unbelievable. We get to see the Canadian national team, the what are they called? NDC.
Yep.
They trained just before us.
Exactly.
And these girls are phenomenal. And I can't wait to see 3, 5, 7 years from now, where do they end up? So that being said, we got less than 500 days from the World Cup. Who's your pick?
Oh, it's a good question. I got to go with Germany. Do I think they're going to win? I'm not too sure. I heard they have a good team. I haven't been following the team closely, but me from a German background, my mom's side, I got to root for them. But I think Spain just has the strongest team right now. So it'll be a toss up, but Germany is my pick. Yeah, for sure.
I'd say Spain is a great contender. I think you can
100%.
never, in soccer, you can never count Germany out because they've been perpetually a great team. I can't remember them having a horrible team.
Yeah.
But Spain is doing something magical right now. Obviously, my Argentinian roots makes me think of Argentina. I wonder how they would perform without the flashlight of Messi. That's a lot of support they get from the fans, maybe from the referees, maybe from the guy picking the ball out of that, I don't know, that bingo, global bingo game they play. But what I'm excited to see is Canada's output in this World Cup. It's going to be phenomenal. And, just their response in the CONCACAF tournament, which was it called? The Gold Cup? No, that was CONCACAF.
CONCACAF.
Yeah. The tournament that just passed.
Yeah. It'll be huge. I mean, you look at the team now, and it's like more than half of these guys play overseas, and just think of it as any other big club. You have big players. So that's something we've kind of been missing, and can look forward to seeing. Okay, Jonathan David, who plays with Bayern, Jonathan David, who plays with Lille and scored against Liverpool.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And one thing that I'll say, and I may be giving up my spot, but they're so accessible right now. It's unbelievable how much connection you can build with these players. Anytime that Canada plays locally, we'll go and watch them play at BMO Field. And, right after the game, the players will literally come out back to the stadium, jump over the gate and sign autographs. I've got pictures with most of the national team. And it's great because that connection is meaningful for every kid they're signing an autograph. They're saying there is a path. There is an opportunity. We had a chance to go and watch Argentina against Canada in New Jersey. And that was for the CONCACAF quarterfinals. Is the tournament called CONCACAF? I'm missing that.
I think I can't even remember. I think it is
Copa America.
Copa America.
I don't know why that left. So I had a chance to visit New Jersey to watch Argentina against Canada in Copa America. And growing up as a Argentinian soccer fan, I always thought I would have been cheering for them, but no, I was wearing a Canada jersey. With my family, we're there, and we had a really cool moment where one of the players we were with, Hudson, who's now playing on TFC. We were super proud of him. He knows the goalie coach, and so we waved over. We were there, while the players are warming up, and he had looked over. He saw Adam. He kind of points to Adam. They kick a ball into the stadium, and my nephew grabs the ball, passes it to Adam like an official game ball, and he's like, "What do I do?" And you're supposed to throw the ball back, but Adam just stuffs it under his shirt. We had a Canada flag. I go, let's go. And we had gone out to the hallway, and we brought the ball home. And I thought, it's so cool. Those are the type of memories. And again, even if nothing happens in their athletic career, it's a memory we have together. This is just part of their story of life. And I'll always look back at that ball. It's like literally the most prized possession in my household right now. Is this soccer ball from the game. So
absolutely, there's so many great moments that you look back at through just your sport, whether it's soccer, volleyball, basketball, and those are some of your most cherished memories. It's just those little moments, and I think that's kind of what the World Cup will bring too. Is like it'll bring a lot of great memories for our cities, our country. And hopefully bring us all together to just
hope so
support one unity. So
yeah, hopefully, and love of sport and togetherness. As we're just chatting, I was thinking about the light that you see Aldo Bavario, and you're like, oh, you know him, and like you're maybe have been an inspiring character. I don't know if you realize how inspiring you are for the kids that you teach. Like you are the Aldo, and one day people are gonna be like, Coach Evan. And be like, oh yeah, I know him. You know what I mean? And so that's we talk about you 5 and 10 years down the line. It's not just about what will you achieve, but what impact will you make on the lives of the people around you.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And that's what what drives us is not necessarily number of sales or sales volume or signs or awards. That's all ego driven. All we care about is impact. And I think like, what impact can we create? Like we're filming this in the start of the year. I'm like, what can we do that at the end of this year we look back and say we helped people's lives, we made a difference, and made their life hopefully a little bit better.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and you get to do that every week, and
that's the goal, right? That's the goal. Is even when I'm training kids, I'm not looking at myself necessarily as a soccer coach, but a mentor to them, and I'm trying to instill life lessons within their soccer training. Because again, like you said, it's not everyone who's going to be a professional, but if they can get the lessons from, you know, just the discipline, the training, and the learning process, and apply that to their everyday life, that is, again, wouldn't say ultimate goal. I'd love for them to go on and play pro, but for those who can't, that's everything.
Well,
So
I remember distinctly, there was a training session we did. It was a crazy rainy day, and we're outside. This was in the summer. It was, I thought you were going to cancel it, and you're like, no, we're on. I think I texted you, and you're like, yeah, we're on. I was like, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't care. Like, commitment is commitment. I don't care if it's cold. I don't care if it's wet. Do it anyways. Do it wet.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember you were there, and there was some passing sequence, and someone there, I don't remember who, was like nonchalant, and you'd stop them. You're like, guys, stop. If you're going to be here, I want you to be better.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think about that line all the time. I tell Adam all the time. I tell Julian, I tell Isabel, I'm like, if you're going to be here, I want you to be better. Like, you're not here to just be the same. And it could be in anything, right? Like, could be any application of life. If you're going to be here, be better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that I try to remind myself, because, you know, whether it's a soccer training or wherever, it's like, you know, be reflective. Think, okay, I'm here for a reason. If I'm going to come out on a wet, rainy day, it's not just so I can, you know, say I went out to train for a rainy day, but it's, you know, it's that sort of mindset. Okay, I'm here because it's an extra day to get 1% better, and if I can do that every single day, then imagine myself a month, 2 months, a year from now. So
I remember there was a cold, super cold practice Julian was at, and the parents were like, I can't believe that they're training in this cold. And I thought about that iconic goal that Canada scored in Saskatchewan. Was it Jonathan Davies? Alfonso Davies or Jonathan David?
Against
when they played in Saskatchewan, they made it to the World Cup qualifying.
I think it was Jonathan David.
Jonathan David, he scored, and then they jumped into the snow altogether.
Yeah.
It's like they had a competitive advantage in that they were used to playing in snow. And, you know, you have to be ready for anything.
Absolutely.
Right? And, you know, some people start a business maybe in a recession, and like, oh, what a bad time to start a business. I'm like, no, what a great time. At least you learn how to start a business in a recession.
Yeah.
Right? Other people will wait 4 or 5 years to have a business in a recession. And, you know, they have a lot of lessons to learn with a lot of chips on the table.
Yeah, I think that's a good lesson, is there's no right time to start anything.
Yeah.
You just go fail, learn, and that's how you get better. So, I mean, that's, I guess, something that, you know, I kind of learned along the way is, you know, you wait, whether you're just, you know, starting any business, you're waiting for the right time, you're waiting for everything to be perfect, but your idea is never going to be what comes out of it. It's always going to alter and change, and, you know, go with what you got. And then that's how whatever flourishes will come to be. Otherwise, you're just going to wait, and someone else will do what you're doing, or